There is a mineral powder that costs exactly $2 and petrifies rust for good. It doesn't just cover the corrosion, it doesn't just slow it down. It fundamentally changes the molecular structure of iron oxide, turning it into a black, rock-hard shield that is chemically impossible to rust again. One application, and the metal is fossilized against the elements forever. The Roman Empire used this exact chemistry to preserve the gates of their frontier outposts. The British Navy tested it in 1850 and found it outperformed every lead paint in existence. Then, in the mid-20th century, a $400 billion industry decided that a permanent solution was a threat to their bottom line. They didn't stop using it because it failed. They stopped talking about it because it worked so well, it threatened to make the entire automotive aftermarket obsolete. This is the story of tannic acid, the $2 mineral the corporations tried to bury, and why your mechanic prays you never learn its name. Welcome to the Forbidden Vault. If you believe this knowledge belongs to the people and not the boardrooms, the subscribe button is your way to keep these archives open. Imagine a world where your vehicle frame, your garden tools, and your survival gear never needed to be replaced. For over 2,000 years, that was the reality for master blacksmiths. They didn't have expensive synthetic primers, sandblasting equipment, or chemical vapor deposition. They had oak bark, pomegranate rinds, and rainwater. They discovered that when certain plant minerals touch rusted iron, a violent but silent chemical reaction occurs at the molecular level. The orange, flaky, unstable rust is petrified. It is converted into iron tannate, a dark, insoluble compound that is harder than the original steel and completely waterproof. In 1943, during the height of World War II, the US military rediscovered this ancient armor to protect warships in the salt-heavy Pacific. They found that a 4% mineral solution provided better protection than any petroleum-based coating ever developed in a laboratory. But after the war, the narrative changed. Corporations like DuPont and Sherwin-Williams had invested billions into synthetic coatings that required constant reapplication. A $2 powder that solved the problem permanently wasn't a product, it was an existential threat. If rust is a choice, and that choice only costs $2, the $90 billion yearly repair industry collapses overnight. The sensory reality of rust is something we have been trained to accept as inevitable. We see that orange cancer eating away at our truck frames, our shovels, and our emergency gear, and we are told the only solution is to buy more. More sprays, more parts, more replacements. But rust is not a biological death sentence for metal. It is simply an unbalanced chemical state. Iron wants to return to the earth as iron oxide. The industry exploits this natural tendency by selling you band-aids that trap moisture and oxygen against the metal, actually accelerating the decay while hiding it under a layer of shiny black paint. This $2 mineral works from the inside out. It is a molecular conversion. It reaches into the microscopic pores of the iron oxide and bonds to it at a subatomic level. The disease literally becomes the cure. The rust itself is transformed into the protective barrier. No scrubbing, no grinding, and zero labor. You aren't fighting the rust. You are using the rust to build a shield. Let's look at the history they erased from the textbooks. In the 2nd century, Roman legionnaires stationed at the edge of the empire in Britain faced a relentless enemy: moisture. Their iron weapons and armor would corrode within days of crossing the English Channel. Garrison records discovered at the fort of Vindolanda describe preservation vats filled with concentrated oak bark extract. The soldiers would soak their chainmail and gladius blades in this dark brown liquid. When they pulled them out, the metal had turned a deep obsidian black. This wasn't just for aesthetics, it was a chemical fossilization. Those Roman tools found today in archaeological digs are often in better condition than a 10-year-old pickup truck in the Midwest. Why? Because the Romans understood convergent chemistry. They knew that the tannins in the bark didn't just sit on the surface, they became the surface. In feudal Japan, swordsmiths faced a similar challenge. The humidity of the islands was a constant threat to the soul of the samurai, the katana. Before the final clay tempering, many masters would brush the soft iron core with a solution made from fermented persimmons, rich in condensed tannins. This created a molecular boundary that prevented internal corrosion for centuries. In Persia, metalworkers used pomegranate rinds to protect their legendary blades from the corrosive salt air of the Gulf. These cultures, separated by thousands of miles and hundreds of years, all arrived at the same conclusion. Plant-based minerals are the ultimate antidote to iron's decay. By the 1800s, this knowledge was briefly formalized by modern science. In 1813, French chemist Michel-Eugène Chevreul isolated tannic acid as a pure compound. He documented how it reacted with iron 3 oxide, the flaky orange substance we call rust, and transformed it into iron 3 tannate. This new compound is not just a coating, it is a chelate. In chemistry, a chelate is a structure where a central metal atom is gripped by a larger molecule like a claw. The tannic acid claws onto the iron atoms, locking them into a stable, non-reactive state. It becomes chemically inert. It cannot react with oxygen, and it cannot react with water. It has been petrified. The British Royal Navy took notice. In 1850, they began formal trials on the hulls of iron warships. The results were devastating to the burgeoning paint industry of the time. Ships treated with a simple tannin-based wash showed 60% less corrosion over a 5-year period than those treated with expensive lead-based primers. The Navy logs preserved in the National Archives at Kew describe it as a permanent transmutation of the surface oxide. But the Industrial Revolution was also the birth of the subscription model. The goal of the new chemical giants was not to solve a problem once, but to manage it forever for a fee. Lead paint and later petroleum-based undercoatings provided a recurring revenue stream that a one-time mineral application could never match. Fast forward to 1941. The world is at war. The U.S. War Department launches a classified materials preservation program at the Aberdeen Proving Ground. They were losing Sherman tanks and Willys Jeeps to corrosion before they even reached the battlefield. Standard gun oils and greases were failing in the tropical humidity of the Pacific. The researchers tested over 200 compounds. The clear winner? A 4% solution of tannic acid. It outperformed every synthetic inhibitor by a factor of 2. It was cheap, it was non-toxic, and it was permanent. During the war, ammunition cans, landing craft hinges, and rifle barrels were treated with this $2 mineral. But when the soldiers came home in 1945, the military-industrial complex shifted its focus from survival to profit. The 1950s saw a systematic erasure of this technology. Corporations like DuPont and Sherwin-Williams had invested millions into synthetic, petroleum-based primers. They built vast distribution networks and marketing departments around the idea that rust never sleeps. If you could solve rust with a $2 bag of powder mixed in a bucket of water, their entire business model would vanish. They didn't just hide the science, they rebranded it. They lobbied state legislatures to rewrite residential and automotive codes. They made passive solar and mineral preservation sound like primitive, unreliable relics of the past. They replaced the permanent solution with the annual maintenance package. Think about the economics for a moment. The automotive aftermarket in the United States alone is a $300 billion machine. Roughly 30% of that, $90 billion, is driven entirely by corrosion. Every replacement rocker panel, every new exhaust system, every brake line that bursts in the winter, and every $2,000 dealership undercoating exists because the industry has successfully buried the cure. They want you to believe that your truck has a shelf life. They want you to believe that road salt is an unstoppable force of nature. It isn't. It is a manageable chemical reaction, and you have been denied the tool to stop it. Here is the secret they removed from the technical manuals. You don't need a professional shop. You don't need a respirator. You don't even need to sand the metal down to a shiny surface. In fact, this mineral works better if there is some rust present. To build your own molecular shield, you need to source pure, food-grade tannic acid powder. You can find it at specialty chemical suppliers, health food stores, or bulk online retailers for about $2 to $5 for a 100-gram bag. That small bag is enough to treat the entire frame of a full-size pickup truck. The masterclass of petrification starts with a simple mixture. Dissolve 5 grams of tannic acid powder into 100 milliliters of warm water. Stir it until the liquid turns the color of deep black tea. This is your forbidden solution. The chemistry is exactly what the Roman legionnaires used 2,000 years ago. Step 1. Preparation. You only need to remove the loose, flaking rust with a simple wire brush. You aren't trying to remove the corrosion. You are just cleaning the surface so the solution can penetrate the pores. Do not sand it down to bare metal. The tannic acid needs the iron oxide to react. It needs the disease to create the armor. Step 2. Application. Use a cheap foam brush, a rag, or even a simple spray bottle. Apply the solution evenly across the rusted area. Within seconds, you will see the magic happen. The orange-brown rust will begin to darken. Within 15 minutes, it will turn a deep midnight black. This is the moment of petrification. At a molecular level, the tannic acid molecules are gripping the iron atoms and transforming them into iron tannate. The surface is being fossilized in real time. Step 3. Curing. Let the first coat dry for about 2 hours. If you are in a high humidity environment or a salt-heavy coastal area, apply a second coat. Once the second coat is dry, the metal is chemically sealed. It is now a stable, inert surface. You can leave it as is for a matte black industrial look, or you can use it as the ultimate primer. Paint, wax, or oil will bond to this iron tannate surface more effectively than they ever would to bare steel. For your survival gear, this is a game changer. An axe head that normally rusts after one rainy night in the woods, treated with this $2 mineral, it becomes a piece of black armor gear. Your carbon steel knives, your tent stakes, your camp stove, all of it can be petrified. For off-grid living, this means your metal water tanks and structural supports can last a lifetime without maintenance. The industry wants you to believe that you are a consumer. A consumer is someone who uses things up and buys them again. But we are not consumers, we are stewards. We have a responsibility to our tools, our vehicles, and our resources. The $60 billion industry depends on your ignorance. They depend on you believing that you need their $20 branded rust converter, which is actually 90% cheap solvent and 5% of this exact mineral marked up by 1,000%. They depend on you paying the rust tax every single year until your vehicle is hauled to the scrapyard. But chemistry doesn't have a marketing budget. The electromagnetic spectrum doesn't care about corporate profits. The laws of thermodynamics say that iron wants to rust, but the laws of convergent chemistry say that tannins can stop it. This $2 mineral has been waiting in the forest, in the oak trees, in the pomegranates, in the very earth itself, for 2,000 years for someone to remember. You are now part of the 1% who knows the truth. You are no longer a victim of planned obsolescence. You are a master of your own gear. Every time you share this knowledge, you are taking a $500 repair bill out of the pockets of the corporations and putting it back into the pockets of a working family. Every time you petrify a piece of metal, you are rebelling against a system built on waste and lies. The Forbidden Vault isn't just a collection of tricks. It is a library of sovereignty. We are reclaiming the skills that were stolen from us in the name of modern convenience. If this revelation changes how you look at the orange decay on your truck, your tools, or your home, then share this video. Every share is a crack in the wall they built around this knowledge. We are digging deeper into the archives, opening the vaults that were meant to stay sealed forever. The next vault opens soon, and what's inside is the one trash item every household throws away that can generate enough thermal energy to heat an entire home for the winter without a single watt of electricity. It is a secret that the energy companies have spent billions to keep out of your reach. Subscribe to make sure you're there when the doors open. Stay sharp, stay sovereign, and welcome to the Forbidden Vault.